Hello, I'm Professor Andrew McLeod and welcome to this, the 13th in the series of coronavirus podcasts for the Global Thinkers Forum. Today, I'd like to talk to you about how do we accept the coronavirus as an ongoing lethality risk to the human population for the foreseeable future. Now, what do I mean by that? Clearly, if we were to get a vaccine for the coronavirus tomorrow, by the time it was manufactured, distributed, and given to enough people to get global herd immunity, we are some months away, late 2021 at the earliest. And there is a large chance that we will not find an effective vaccine. So whilst the last few months we've buckled down, we've panicked, we've started to deal with the virus, we've locked down pubs, clubs, restaurants, we've supported our health systems, and we have reinforced our community separation and our hygiene practices, we see around the world that this virus is still expanding. Still expanding in the United States, certainly in Brazil, certainly in India, Indonesia, and sub-Saharan Africa. And just as worryingly, we have had increased spikes in countries that had previously had the curve flattened. Countries like Israel, Australia, even Taiwan and South Korea have all seen moderate spikes or really frightening spikes come back up. The one thing that is clear is as our lockdowns release, the virus comes back again. I fear where the virus will end up in the United States, and I fear what will happen at the end of summer in Europe. So if this virus is going to be with us for a long time or permanently, how is it that we accept a lethality risk on an ongoing basis? Well, think about it this way. We accept lethality risks in almost everything we do. We accept the lethality risk of trains, planes and automobiles. We accept the lethality risk of horses and mosquitoes. We accept the lethality risk of the common cold and other flus. There are certain ways we can ameliorate these risks and certain amounts of money that we're prepared to spend to ameliorate those risks. We could spend more money and remove even more risk in trains, planes, automobiles, horses, bees and all sorts of things, but we choose not to. We choose to accept a certain amount of risk with those activities. When the coronavirus came up, the reason we needed to respond as strongly and as powerfully as we did is not because this was a lethality risk instead of those pre-existing ones I've already spoken about. It was a lethality risk on top of those pre-existing ones. It wasn't the common flu or corona, it was corona and the common flu. It wasn't car accident risks or corona, it was corona and car accident risks. It was a lethality risk on top of what we already had, and it was new, so we didn't know how to handle it. Well, it's not so new now. We're still coming to terms with how this virus works. We're still coming to terms with treatment options, but we're starting to understand better how it works, who it impacts, and how to treat it. We now have a much more informed way of having a logical discussion around which bits of that risk we are prepared to accept and how much we're prepared to pay to ameliorate that risk. Now, I know some people get offended at putting economics in front of lives, but we do already put economics and lives into a balance of equation today. If you doubt that, then wonder, why is it that we're not spending hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars more in the wealthy countries to stop people dying in the developing world? Why aren't we putting hundreds of millions of more to stop wars, disease, pandemics? We could put more. We choose not to. In the same way, we know there is a huge lethality risk from the economic slowdown in the developing world. We know there is a lethality risk to old age people. So how is it that we are going to have this discussion in our community about how do we permanently separate grandparents from grandchildren, or do we accept the risk? How do we permanently have social distancing in supermarkets, or do we accept the risk? How do we have social distancing in elevators? Do you know in many office buildings it would take 4 hours to clear the morning peak if you limited elevators to 2 square metres per person, and 4 hours in the evening, the entire working day it would take to get people up and get people back down again. Clearly, that's not going to work. So these issues we need to discuss now. We need to move from a mindset of buckle down, panic, and think that it's over, to how do we accept the coronavirus as an ongoing lethality in the human population, and what are we prepared to pay to ameliorate that risk on an ongoing basis. I'm Andrew McLeod, and this has been the 13th in the series of coronavirus podcasts for the Global Thinkers Forum.